The theater world was rocked months ago when the coronavirus pandemic suspended all live events indefinitely. But for Baldwin Wallace University, the show must go on. Hi, I'm Sarah McCord, a student at Baldwin Wallace, and I'm here to take you behind the scenes of the virtual production of Spring Awakening. And trust me, this isn't your typical Zoom performance. We're going to talk with members of the cast and creative team to learn all about what it took to put together this virtual production. So welcome to the making of Awakening. Today's guest, Matt Webb, started as the music director for Spring Awakening, but quickly found himself more and more involved in the production. Stick around to learn about the filming process, editing challenges, and of course the music direction of Spring Awakening. How did your role change throughout the process?
Yeah, so I'm trying to think back to obviously the initial vision was to do a fully staged regular musical, in which case my job would have been music director. And all of the running music rehearsals and orchestra rehearsals and doing just a traditional musical. And then I think at some point it changed to live scenes and dance, but all the singing would be pre-recorded, but still with a live band. So that would still consider, orchestra stuff. And then we pivoted again to everything digital. And so at that point, it shifted to, I made the tracks that the singers performed to over the summer. And then it became camera person, director of photography is what it ended up being called. And then editing the whole thing. And then, just in addition to the normal, making sure the singers knew their parts and making sure everyone was comfortable with setting up a self-tape situation for filming their parts of each song. So it shifted from music director to music director, director of photography, editor, and just lots of wrangling. What I don't think anyone realized is how much video there actually is. So when we've been shooting things on location and in the theater, there are usually 1 to 4 people filming, and then every song has an individual video for every person in that song for both casts. So currently there are about 1,250 individual snippets of video.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's funny too, because I didn't even think about this, that it's every time we assigned a song to someone in the cast or to the cast and said Song of Purple Summer, it's the last song in the show, every single person sings in it, that's 36 individual videos being texted, Dropboxed, Google Drived, emailed, and then just trying to and as I'm sure you're aware as a student, a deadline is given. And sometimes that deadline is met, and other times that deadline is a day late or a week late or 2 weeks late. And so it's just it's been a challenge, just keeping track of all of those hundreds and thousands of videos coming in. But
yeah, and the double casting, it just makes it twice, kind of.
Well, exactly. Which, I initially thought would be harder than it was in terms of editing, but since we're kind of doing, it's not the same film. It's in essence the same film between the casts, just in terms of both casts have the same tracks and have the same, that sort of stuff. And we did similar shots with each cast, just in terms of the camera person is starting here and moving here. And, but because they're different groups of people, sometimes different shots looked more interesting between the different casts. So, while, for one cast, a big wide moving shot would have worked. For the other cast, maybe someone was maybe there was one person who did something really interesting in their shot. And so they're similar films, but not identical.
How did you create the instrumental music recordings for the actors to sing along with?
Yeah, it's all digital. I use a recording software, Logic, and when we licensed the show, MTI sent the orchestra books, as they always do, with the anticipation of being played by actual people. But just since the summer was a little lighter, as it often is, and more so because all of my summer gigs were canceled, I, just was like, I need to get a leg up on this, because I know once school starts, it's going to be crazy. So yeah, just over the summer, just me and my little home office studio, just plunking everything in and trying to mix it to the best of my ability. And that's like,
the world.
At one point we had talked about doing, with the amazing conservatory, it would be lovely to have been able to use live musicians, but it would just became a matter of, time and priorities. And, there are only so many hours in the day to do so many things.
How did you determine which locations across Northeast Ohio would be used for filming?
I was mostly Vicky. I mean, she and I had a lot of meetings before we started filming, just in terms of like, this needs to be in a park, this needs to be in a cemetery, this would be better on the stage, that sort of stuff. And then she would do a lot of like early morning driving tours of areas, and I would wake up in the morning to a slew of pictures from her saying, how about this for that, how about this for that, and how about this for that. And yeah, and I mean, it's a lot of parks. There are a couple of people's homes that we were able to use interiors of. A lot of it is like, a lot of outdoors locations, whether they're outside of buildings on campus, parks in Lakewood, parks in Berea, like just trying to get as much use of the, the area that we live in that's easily drivable by students.
Yeah. And I think there really is a lot pretty close to this campus that is kind of different and unique in its setting.
Well, even, like Coe Lake Park, we used a lot of different places in Coe Lake Park. And I think just by nature of filming in different times of day and sort of different directionality, I don't think people would necessarily know how much of it is like, I feel like it looks, a lot of the locations look very different from shot to shot, just because of, it's a beautiful, very diverse park.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Did you ever run into problems with like the weather or the lighting time of day wise?
For the most part, not so much. I mean, the weather was really kind to us. We've been doing some like final shots this week and last that have been a little fluctuating, just because of, it's raining, or, because we're trying to schedule things far enough out to give the actors time to prepare, but also, you can't really, in this time of year, schedule something 10 days out and assume that the weather that you see in the 10-day forecast is going to hold for 10 days. So for example, we were supposed to be shooting something tonight because it was a sunny day in the forecast, several days ago. And it is not a sunny day anymore. So we pushed it to Saturday, which is the next sunny day in the forecast. And, so that's mainly been it. But for the large initial chunk of filming that we did, like the first 4 weeks, 5 weeks, I don't think we had a single rain out or, freezing day. It was always perfectly sunny. And so weather has been kind to us.
How has the creative process between yourself, the other actors, and the other creative members been different than what you're used to?
Yeah, it's interesting because I don't think it is definitely a brand new way of doing things. And I think it has its challenges, but also I feel like, for like teaching music over Zoom, we haven't really done a lot of like, you and I both get together on Zoom and let's like, you play your part and we'll hear it. And, it's more been like, so I would send the cast tracks basically in advance saying, here is your part laid over the track. Here's the sheet music with everyone's like notes as to like what line you're singing and when your cutoffs are and stuff. And then they would send their videos. Initially, when we were doing a lot of in-person group stuff, when we were filming on stage and we would have the full cast, what we would do is they would have sent me videos already. We would kind of watch them all together and I would say like, okay, this is, we want this to, crescendo here. We want to make sure these cutoffs are together. I would do a video of myself conducting conducting them sitting there quietly, and would make that available to them. So after the fact, they could go back and say, oh yeah, I was supposed to, hold this a little longer, or that's not as long. Because yeah, it is quite hard trying to get, at most we have 18 people in one cast. So getting 18 people's individual vocal lines to match consonants and syncopations and cutoffs. And a lot of that, the nice thing about the digital era is that a lot of that I can fix after the fact. Not everything, but there are certainly, I can extend notes or move cutoffs or that sort of thing. It's time consuming, and I would rather, it's easier if it's done right and then not have to fix and post, but that's just the nature of the world we're living in right now.
What was your process for filming and editing the show?
Yeah, so I mean, Vicky and I have just been basically, we set out a shot list before filming even began of, we want to make sure we're seeing this and that, and this is, kind of the vibe of the song, and this is the feeling that we're going for. And then as we got into filming, it was sort of, make sure we get, a close up on this person, or we really want to feel the energy. So like the camera should be moving a lot, so that when I moved into the editing phase, it was just a matter of picking out the right shots that had the right energy for the parts, and deciding when do we want to be seeing the actors' faces in the individual videos they've been sending, or when do we want to see something on location, when do we want to see choreography, when, that sort of stuff. And then it's just been a lot of, I have been doing a lot of late night editing, and so I usually work until like 2 or 3 in the morning, and then I'll send Vicky a bunch of videos, and she'll wake up at 4 or 5 in the morning and watch them, and I'll wake up to a bunch of notes. But it's just been a lot of back and forth collaboration, in terms of making sure we're telling the story in an effective way, and in an entirely different way than we'd be able to tell it on stage. Well, and we can in a way that you can never do on stage, we can really focus the action to where we want to. I mean, if you're looking at a stage that has 18 people on it, and a band, and a set, and audience members in a theater, as an audience member, I can look wherever I want, even if there's a crucial, pivotal point of exposition that's happening by one person in a spotlight. I mean, we can try to make it as clear as humanly possible to an audience member, but as an audience member, I can still be like, what's that guitar player doing back there? Like, is he, and I can choose to focus on whatever I want. Where with a film, we can say, this is what you need to look at. If you need to be looking at 18 people, that's great. If you need to be looking at choreography, that's what we'll show you. And just the ability to move quickly through those images is something that you just can't do on stage. If there's film, I think it's even worse if you're on stage with film behind you, because then it's like one more, do I look at the film? Do I look at the actors? Do I look, mm-hmm. So it's been nice to be able to say, like, this is the story, this is what you need to be focusing on, and help guiding the audience that way.
What was the biggest challenge you faced creating this virtual production? What has been the most rewarding part?
I think it's the same answer for both, because, going into this, neither Vicky or I have ever done anything like this before. We've done shows, obviously, but like to tell a story this way, to film a story this way, to edit a story this way, is pretty uncharted territory. So going into this, I'm a photographer. I enjoy taking pictures, not professionally by any means, but I feel like I have a good sense of, composition when it comes to still photography. So going into it, not realizing what my role would be in the end, just trying to, use my skills to the best of my ability and hoping for the best. So I think that was scary. I mean, going into the first day of filming, having a plan, but no experience to back that plan, and just hoping for the best, in a area where I'm not used to being unprepared. I feel like when you're going into a first day of rehearsal for something, like, I know what's going to happen. There are always sometimes, some little surprises, but it's like, it's pretty much the same show to show what like that first week is like. And going into this, like, having no idea if anything was going to work, having any idea if, the things we were doing were going to be helpful in the end, are we shooting too much? Are we shooting too little? Is this light okay? Are they, so yeah, just going in confidently and hoping for the best. And then I think that's what ended up being a success, is that it's been a lot of fun, like learning how to do these things and learning about the things that do work and don't work. And, luckily we did an abundance of filming at the beginning. So it was like, well, if that shot doesn't work, there are others to choose from. But just figuring out how to make art like this in a time when it seems like this will be the way to make art for, a little while longer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you think you'd ever like to do something like this again?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, it's been like time consuming and daunting, but also super rewarding to see, the final product in sight. And as it's coming together and seeing a product that I don't think anyone, including students or faculty or whatever, was expecting to end up what it's becoming.
Mm-hmm. I'm really excited to see it. I can't wait.
It's going to be fun. I going into this, I wasn't entirely sure what it was going to be in the end, and I certainly didn't think it was going to be what it's become. So it's interesting to see. I'm excited for other people to see it too, because I'm interested to see what they think.